50% of our first language acquisition occurs before age 6, but it takes a lifetime to complete the learning language process. Communicative competence is a level of expertise in the language that allows the speaker to decode messages and personally navigate meaning and context. Students can have different levels of competence depending on the context. For example, students may have grammatical, sociolinguistic discourse, and strategic competences. We develop our first language subconsciously through the first 5 years of our lives. We develop phonology of sound patterns and syntax with sentence structure. We develop the first language by being immersed through it all the time in our days of interaction with others, including through our primary caregivers. We use our prior knowledge, experience, and context. Students can overgeneralize in acquiring both a first and second language. When students go to school, it could be the first time students have exposure to written language. Each grade level advances our knowledge of language, orally and written. Stages of second language acquisition: pre-production, early production, speech emergence, intermediate fluency, and advanced fluency. The pre-production stage seems to be the most challenging, as CLD students are at the lowest level of second language acquisition. During this stage, CLD students are in the silent period, in which they use nonverbal signals to communicate. They also struggle to understand what is being said. This stage can be really challenging for teachers as well, because many times teachers don't have the necessary skills to communicate with a student who speaks a language different from their own. Limited language production is associated in pre-production, early production, and speech emergence stages. CALP capacities are developed in all stages. In each stage, students are learning, but they develop their own ways of showing what they are learning in CALP. During the pre-production stage, students learn using visuals and listening. In the early production stage, students learn by repetition and cues. In speech emergence, students learn more through orally spoken words that they just learned. In the intermediate fluency stage, students learn through more vocabulary and comprehension with oral and written language. And in advanced fluency, students learn through reading and writing information along with more advanced oral communication. This is the meaning of language used in a given context and includes the ability to understand and use descriptive words, identify synonyms and antonyms, and recognize words by their definition and define words. Language semantics is important to a constructivist language learning environment because this approach focuses on cognitive linguistic and cognitive sociocultural connections at the contextual, intercultural, and affective levels. Context in this type of environment encourages pattern recognition and emphasizes relevance of new information to learners. When CLD students are schooled only in the second language, it can take a minimum of 5 to 10 years to attain grade level norms. It requires more time if a student does not have any literacy skills in their first language. If the student is also able to meet grade level norms in their first language, they will typically reach proficiency in the second language in 4 to 7 years. This is often a quicker process because the students have a greater literacy base in their first language and are able to transfer these skills to learning English. Mentions of the student biography card can aid teachers in understanding more about student backgrounds. CLD students come to the United States with varying abilities, which can explain why they struggle in particular SL areas, including reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The biography cards can also indicate different testing accommodations that can benefit CLD learners. In addition, the cards also provide information about students' preferred grouping method. All of this information can be helpful in planning for instruction and activities within the classroom. A teacher may include family dynamics, interests outside of school, and preferred names or nicknames to a student biography card. It might be helpful to consider where students are in the U-curve, their stage of second language acquisition, and learning style. This information may be beneficial for non-CLD students to understand their new friends. Teachers can have the CLD student teach about their culture. Knowing what each student is interested in will help to form relationships within and outside of the classroom. Building relationships with these students will help lower their affective filter. Also, students knowing this can incorporate interests and information about others' backgrounds and projects to better accommodate that student. Val was in first grade. She was born in the U.S., but her family is from Tanzania. She is below proficient in reading, writing, and speaking in English and Swahili. She was a model student at the beginning of kindergarten, but had some behavior problems at the end of the year. She is doing well academically and behaviorally in first grade. Jorge came to the U.S. from Mexico with his mother a year and a half ago. He had consistent schooling in Mexico and is academically proficient in Spanish. He is not proficient in English, but prefers reading or writing where he can process information before producing it. Sophia has had no formal schooling. The only learning she has had academically has been through her parents and older sister. She is orally proficient in BICS, but not KELP. She is unable to read and write in both Spanish and English. Her dad speaks Spanish only, while her mom speaks both Spanish as her first language and English as her second language. Sophia processes information slowly and watches peers as models to figure out how to do the task. Naibani came to the U.S. from Sudan 3 years ago and attended school in Jacksonville, Florida before coming to Nebraska. She had inconsistent schooling in Sudan and received poor grades. She is not proficient in reading, writing, or speaking in English. Naibani is behind academically and really struggles to grasp new concepts. She also needs a lot of one-on-one assistance to be successful.